Welcome back to the second episode of God's Word. I'm so glad that you joined us. If you listened to our very first episode, you know that we laid down the foundational baseline in our walk with God. Faith. We talked about faith, about what faith really means, how to trust God in uncertainty, and that the core truth that faith is in the absence of doubt, but choosing to trust Him in spite of it. If you missed episode 1, definitely go back and give it a listen. But today we're taking a necessary step deeper because it's one thing to talk about faith when life is smooth. It's a completely different conversation when you've been hit by a setback. What happens when you did pray? Did you step out and trust and things still fall apart? How do you rebuild your faith when you feel bruised, disappointed, or spiritually exhausted? If you ever feel stuck in that place, today's episode is specifically for you. Let's be honest with each other. Spiritual disappointment is real. When the unexpected answer to prayer turns into a closed door, or worse, a deep loss, our natural human reflex is to pull back. We freeze. We stop praying with passion. We stop stepping out, and we put our spiritual lives on an emotional cruise to protect ourselves from getting hurt again. But here's the danger in pulling back. Passive faith slowly turns into dead faith. I'm going to say that again. Passive faith slowly turns into dead faith. Look at what James writes in James chapter 2, verse 17. In the same way, faith by itself is not accompanied by action, it's dead. When disappointment strikes, it paralyzes our actions. We tell ourselves, I'll serve God again when I feel better, or I'll just trust Him with my future once again. He explains, or when he explains what happened in my past that went wrong. But James reminds us that faith isn't a museum to keep on a shelf. But it is a thing to use, because if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. Because it's a living muscle. Waiting for your emotions to feel 100% healed before you take your next step of obedience will keep you stuck on that shore forever. You don't want that. You don't want to stay in the same exact place. You want to move on. So how do we actually move when we're still nursing a setback? I want to look at a powerful image from the Old Testament. In Joshua chapter 3, the Israelites are preparing to cross the Jordan River to enter the Promised Land. Now, verse 15 makes a specific point to mention that the Jordan River was at a flooded stage. This wasn't a calm, ankle-deep stream you could casually stroll across. It was a raging, muddy, overflowing river. And look at what God tells the priest carrying the Ark of Covenant in verse 15 and 16. Yet as soon the priests who carried the Ark reached the Jordan, and their feet touched the water edge, from the upstream stopped flowing. Did you catch that, Tiny? The river and part while God was standing on dry ground. The riverbank arguing against their past mistakes of fear. They had stepped into the cool rushing water first. while it was still overflowing. Rebuilding your faith is after setback, where it's the exact same way. God often doesn't clear the path until your feet hit the water. Action precedes the miracle. If you wait for the circumstances to look safe or your feelings to line up, you'll never see that river part. This brings us back to James. A few verses down in James chapter 2, verse 22, it says, you'll see that faith and its actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. I love that phrase. Faith was made complete by what he did. Healing your faith doesn't happen in isolation. It happens completed by your movement. You don't rebuild trust and sitting back and analyzing your pain. So this saying you can't sit back in. So I'm saying you can't sit back and just analyze it and be like, well, I'll get back up or I'll try again. You rebuild trust by taking one small step of obedience today, right in the middle of that mess. So how do we put this in practice? How do you put this in practice this week or today? 1. Be honest with God. God isn't fragile. Tell him where it hurts. Tell him you feel disappointed, you feel worried, you feel scared. Whatever you're feeling, tell God how you feel. Be honest with him. 2. Identify where you paralyzed yourself. Where did you stop moving? Because of a past setback? Did you stop praying, stop serving, stop trusting him with your career, or did you like harden your heart? What did you do? Think about that for a second. What did you do? And then ask God to fix that for you. And then step 3, take one foot step. You don't need to fix the next 5 years or the next 2 weeks or or you don't have to fix everything the same day. You just have to start. Just take one small action of obedience today, even if your hands are still shaking, and the water still feels cold. So what I was saying earlier about when I love the phrase, faith wasn't made complete by what he did. So with that verse, or that part of that verse is saying what he did when he was working with his faith, it completed it. He became whole with his faith for God. So our main takeaway today is rebuilding faith isn't about feeling strong again before you move. It's about taking the next step of obedience, even while your feet are wet. So remember our main takeaway today. I'm going to say it again. Rebuilding faith isn't about feeling strong again before you move. It's about taking the next step of obedience, even while your feet are wet. God pours rivers at the water's edge, not from the shoreline. Thank you so much for joining me on God's Word. If this episode encouraged you, hit that subscribe button, leave a quick comment, and share it with a friend who might be fighting to rebuild their faith right now. Until next time, keep stepping out, keep trusting, keep living by faith, and keep praying to God. Keep being a son or daughter or a prince or a princess of God. See you next time in episode 3. Love you.